tomorrow. That's because the bill to reopen the government passed last night in the Senate on a 60-40 vote. 8 senators who caucus with the Democrats joined the Republican majority to officially pass that legislation.
The bill now heads back to the House. Those House lawmakers have not been in session in nearly 2 months. A vote to end the shutdown is expected tomorrow, but the nationwide flight reductions could delay those plans if representatives cannot get to Washington. We'll have more on the air travel troubles in a moment, but first, we begin with NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. Melanie, to start, Republicans hold control of the House. Only a simple majority is needed here in that chamber to reopen the government. So where do things stand if there is enough support in the House ultimately?
Yeah, well, the House Republican leadership is confident right now that they're going to be able to pass this bill, especially because President Donald Trump came out and said he would sign the measure. So that is a huge selling point for hardline conservatives who normally would hate this type of deal, but they're backing it as well. That being said, the vote is going to be tight, and that is because the margins are so narrow in the House, and they're about to get even more narrow tomorrow because Speaker Mike Johnson has promised to swear in a new Democrat who just won her special election in September. When that happens, that means the margin for error is only 2 for Johnson on party line votes, and he's not going to get a lot of help from Democrats because the House Democratic leadership is actively whipping against this measure. That being said, there could still be a handful of centrist Democrats who could cross party lines. We're watching those members very closely. Ultimately, though, House Republican leaders confident they'll be able to get it done with mostly Republican votes.
And Melanie, more Democrats are coming out and criticizing members of their own party who voted with Republicans to end the shutdown in the Senate vote. It's largely because they didn't get what they wanted, right? An extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies or a vote on that. What are you hearing today on whether a vote will happen, and how are Democrats feeling about party leadership right now?
So in exchange for voting to reopen the government, those 8 Senate Democrats were guaranteed, it was a handshake deal from John Thune, a vote in mid-December on an ACA bill of their choosing. However, that does not guarantee an outcome. There's very little appetite in Republican circles to simply extend those expiring subsidies. So there's discussions about maybe changing the income cap or the eligibility requirements. And then there's another camp of Republicans who want to reform or fix Obamacare altogether. And they're starting to craft some competing proposals. Instead of subsidies, maybe something more like a health savings account where you put money directly into people's pockets. Even if something passes the Senate, though, there's also no guarantee of a House vote because we talked to Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday, and he is still refusing to commit to put any Senate-passed ACA bill on the House floor. So the fate of these ACA subsidies are uncertain right now. That is really what is driving the fury among Democrats, why you're seeing so many people, especially in the House and members outside of Congress right now, directing their fire at people like Chuck Schumer. Even though he voted against the funding deal, they're saying he didn't do enough to keep his caucus in line.
So, Melanie, briefly, given all the nuances you've outlined, where do we expect this vote to land? How do we expect things to play out?
It's really unclear at this point. There are active discussions between Republicans and Democrats about potentially finding a compromise. But Donald Trump is really an X factor here. He has stepped up his attacks on Obamacare last week and over the weekend. He has talked about doing something and calling it Trump care. So it depends a lot on where he ultimately falls on this issue. And a lot of Republicans are very hesitant to support anything that they don't think has the president's blessing.
All right, Melanie Zanona, thank you.
As the government remains closed and key airport employees are still working without a paycheck, flight reductions at the nation's busiest airports are expanding today.
The Federal Aviation Administration says flights will be cut by 6% today, but that number is set to continue to rise for the rest of the week. The Trump administration says these cuts are happening to reduce the stress on air traffic controllers. Controllers staying on the job through the shutdown have not gotten paid. NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin is at LAX in Los Angeles. So, Dana, to start, I know you've been chatting with travelers today. What are they saying about how their flights are going?
Yeah, Zinkley, some have been frustrated, but we just had one woman. She's heading home to Colorado. She had a spring in her step. She was like, my flight's not canceled. But for some this week, that has not been the case. They've had delays for hours long. Others say they are feeling just sheer anxiety showing up to the airport, not knowing what will happen once they get here. Listen to what someone told me just moments ago. Were you thinking, were you concerned at all?
Absolutely. Anxiety. Yeah, but that was a relief when I got to the airport. And I'm good to go.
And they made their flight right now at LAX. They're about 4% or 3% of flights that are canceled. That's 29. Yesterday, there were more than 200. So we will likely see that number increase as the day goes on and possibly have some more frustrated passengers. Kate and Clay.
And Dana, passengers who have had their flights canceled, they are entitled to financial compensation, right? According to the Transportation Secretary. What do people need to know about that?
So most passengers will receive an alert from their airline saying your flight has been canceled. We are working to rebook you. In some cases, travelers can then contact the airline and say, you know, that option doesn't work for me, either by going to the kiosk or calling the airline directly. And sometimes they will just simply refund you if the other option isn't what you like. And so the Transportation Secretary says that you are entitled to that refund by the airline, no matter what level of seat you book, even if it's that basic economy, non-refundable seat, you are entitled if your flight gets canceled. Ladies.
All right, Dana Griffin for us. Dana, thanks so much.